This is prep update number 2. I was doing some Peloton like intervals with a playlist that I got from back when I used to do cycle bar, and I still have a bunch of playlists saved that I used to ride to in cycle bar, and then some playlists that I used to teach indoor cycling and rowing to. And I was thinking just something about being in prep. Since it's been so long, I just like want to listen to more nostalgic music when it comes to the type of music I listen to. It makes the cardio more enjoyable, but it also, most of all, it makes it something I can just kind of check out into instead of trying to be like productive with my mind. Overall, I'm feeling really good. One week in, you're not really gonna notice a lot of difference usually. It's funny, I've gotten to places in prep where I've been doing like almost 2 hours of cardio a day, and that sucks, and hopefully I won't get there this prep. I really don't think I will, but it's amazing when you're starting prep or when you're in off season, you can't imagine doing that much cardio and putting that much of your day into something like that where you really can't do much else outside of the cardio at that time. And it's really just like anything in prep, your body slowly adapts and your mind slowly adapts to, this is what we're doing, this is what we have to do for our goal. And you just add on a little bit at a time, and it ends up working out. You know, we just like, before you've ever meal prepped your food, you figure out like, oh, I can prep all of this food at once instead of meal by meal. And that saves you a lot of time, but it also saves you a lot of just stress and fatigue, decision fatigue in, you know, figuring out what to eat every day when you already have it laid out for you since you meal prepped. So it's just like anything, you adapt to it over time. And right now it's fun. I'm enjoying doing cardio and I'm excited. I like switching up modalities just to kind of give the body a break from one modality. Stairs really is hard on like your hips and your ankles, like your heels. It's a little higher impact. Obviously with cycling, it's low to no impact, but it can be hard on like the back sometimes and the hips. Quads for sure. I get a big quad pump from cycling, but that's also part of why I like it. So yeah, I'm just gonna change up the modality tonight after I train, probably gonna train a leg day, because I did some shoulders and back yesterday, so. Okay, it is check-in day number 2 of prep, or first check-in of prep. And I just started making coffee, so I'm gonna make the rest of the coffee real quick. I make coffee every morning for me and Austin because honestly, this machine is just like, it's a lot for him. So, no, it's just kind of complicated, and I really like it. Like, I bought this machine because I just really like espresso. So yeah, this is my setup. It looks really dirty right now, but I have the Escasso Dream PID right here. And then I do have an Opus grinder. You can't really see, but I'm almost done making the coffee, so I will make the coffee and then I will do some answers to some of the questions that I got in my Q&A last week. All right, so this is my morning routine. I get up and we take a walk, and then I make some coffee for me and Austin. He's already working. He's like prospecting, cold calling, doing real estate shit. And I like to have like just a little quiet moment where right now I'm reading this book. It's called The Winner Effect, and I actually found it from a YouTube video that just like came up on my feed to watch, and I really liked the video. It kind of just like gave an overview of the book, and just so it's the science of success and how to use it. Basically, like, goes over various like studies and historical events and ways that things have happened amongst different types of winners, like fighters, presidents, all sorts of things, and just like how we can take those lessons from those things and those events and help us win more. So it's been a really interesting book. I'm about halfway through, and then I have this journal. It's called Finding Gratitude. So this is it's made by Compendium, which is actually a company my sister works for. They do a lot of journals and stuff like this, and they have really nice, really just like pretty guided journals. So I've been trying to be better at writing like at least 3 things that I'm grateful for every morning. I miss some days, but that's kind of what I've been doing as my morning routine. So I do that quick. Sometimes I'll read like a couple pages, and then sometimes I'll get into it and read more. Just kind of depends on where my mind is at and like how soon I feel like I really need to get it back into work. I don't have many prep clients who check in on Thursdays, so Thursday is able to be just a little bit of a slower day, which is nice because it's also my check-in day, so I like to like relax a little bit before I do my check-in focus. Okay, so I'm gonna answer some of these questions, and I'm just gonna kind of answer a few every take, just like as I go throughout the day, instead of just answering them all like this, like in a podcast. So you get some variety of backgrounds, basically. So Clarissa, my girl in Fort Worth, she asked a lot of questions, but she also just kind of like I could tell she was watching the last YouTube and like commenting on things as it happened in the question box. So thank you for that engagement, Clarissa. Thank you for letting me know my diet face is not there yet. It's getting there, okay? Like, I can feel it. Can't wait to finalize the routine. So that's one thing that I wanted to mention. So I've been competing for 9 years. I know how to pose, but at the end of the day, we all have like a certain vision of ourselves, and we have certain little like habits and little things that we do that we don't always notice that we do. And I try to be really self-aware of that, and I think I am, but I told Clarissa when I was about to start this prep that I wanted her to help me with my posing. And I have other friends too that help with posing too, like my friend Lianna, she's awesome too. But yeah, I told Clarissa, like, I want you to help me build the routine, and like, you know, let's make this into something for my second pro debut. So I'm really excited to finalize the routine with her. Like I said, Lianna's been a really good help, just making me twist the fuck out of my upper body. So yeah, excited to finalize the routine. Right now, I just kind of like freestyle a lot. I have like a base routine, but I know that over time I'm gonna just get more confident and happy with where my physique is going, and be able to like see it in different lights, because this is the most muscle I've ever had. Like, this is a big difference in terms of like how my physique is gonna look in every pose. So there's some poses that I'm doing even now that like I would have never done because I just didn't have the physique for it. So why the bike? Asking if I have bad knees was one question. Like why I'm doing bike for cardio. There's really not like a magic answer. Mostly it's because I have a history in like cycling, like indoor cycling. I actually used to teach indoor spin classes and indoor rowing classes, mostly on the rowing side, but I did start getting into the cycling as well. Yeah, I just really enjoy it, and it's really hard, and you can make it really hard, but it's not as hard on your body as something like stairs. So I really like doing different series of like intervals, not quite hit as much, like I'll do hit sometimes, but I enjoy doing like a series of climbs. So I will do stairs too. I like stairs. It's just really hard on my like ankles and calves and stuff. My knees have never really had an issue. So long story short, short story long. Initially when you painted your wall black, I thought cool, but after watching the prep video, genius. Yeah. So I wouldn't say like I painted the wall black over there because of check-ins, but it definitely was part of the conversation because I'll actually take you guys with me. So this wall here used to be the same color as that. And as you can see, it goes into the kitchen. So that's like that's what it looks like. So originally I chose like, I want to paint this wall like a dark, cool, moody color that will look good with different colors and things like that, because we like lights, as you can see with the TV, but we also have other lights that go on in here. So the plan was to paint this wall, and then we're like, well, we should probably paint that wall to match, and then ended up painting the inner things over here. So that is kind of why I did it this way. But I chose to not put anything here on the wall because of the fact that, like, well, it's a great place for check-ins. When I first moved here, I did check-ins in like various spaces just to see what worked. And nothing really worked with like the background and the lighting consistency and stuff like that. So yeah, chose to do it there, and it works really well. Okay, I'm gonna do one more question in my reading nook here before I start working on some check-ins. Oh, this is a good one. So are you gonna do macros most of prep or come to the meal plan side? So this is a great question. So I've been tracking macros since like, I think when I first really learned how to track macros was in 2015, after I had prepped for the first time, and I was starting to listen to Layne Norton's podcast, and that's how I actually found out about Paul, who I ended up hiring as my coach for 2016. So that's when I first like understood macros, and I definitely went the kind of like stereotypical macro tracking route at first, where I definitely fit in foods that were not ideal for my health, right? Like I would fit in just like all sorts of little like macro friendly things. I made like recipes. I ate a lot of Quest bars at the time, like that kind of thing. And, you know, obviously it didn't not work because I got my pro card. I got like to DEXA scan 4% body fat in that prep, eating things that like, you know, weren't necessarily like bodybuilder food. But I think over the years, I've just learned the importance and like I learned to embrace the importance of just like health and micronutrients and things like that, and how they help us function better and recover better. Also how they're better for us, just like, especially as someone who's an enhanced athlete, like you have to take care of your health because like you're playing with fire pretty much. So that's that, among a lot of other things, just like growing up a little bit, understanding the body a little bit more, is why I've transitioned over the years to basically be on a meal plan. So right now, my coach, Mark, gives me a set of macros, right? And when I signed up with him, he had the option, like, do you want a meal plan or are you good with macros? And I think he probably like has certain people that he might like really want them to be on a meal plan, someone like on a gut protocol and something like that. That's different, but my gut and everything is healthy. There's never been anything that has made him say like, hey, what are you eating? Maybe we should change that. And if there was, I'm sure he would say something. But yeah, I've just been good on macros for a while without being provided a meal plan, because I know more or less what he would want me to eat. I know I have nutrient variety. I have a lot of different things that, you know, help me perform my best and feel my best. My digestion is really regular. So if it started getting irregular, I would probably start to try to do things differently for myself, or ask for help, or ask for a meal plan or something like that. I'm sure things might change. You know, he might decide to like halfway through prep, like, hey, let's put you on a meal plan so I know exactly what you're eating. And I would honestly be fine with that. I pretty much do that now just with myself. He, on his sheet in his plan, has like a table of food sources that he prefers I eat, that he wants me to eat for like pre and post and inter-workout meals. And that list is food that I already would eat pre and post workout. And I just try to prioritize micronutrient density and just like less processed food, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, if the meal plan comes and it's like, hey, you need to do this, I'll do it. But at this point, I am pretty autonomous, and I kind of am on a meal plan already with myself. So I eat the same thing pretty much every day, give or take some amounts of things. Like if I run out of raspberries, oh, I have strawberries. So I'll just do the calculation and see what fits how and stuff like that. So that is the meal plan versus macros. There's really no like reason to do one or the other outside of just like what works best for you. I really like having freedom to eat what I want to eat and not feel so beholden to a specific everything. So yeah, but if I needed to do that, I totally would, because it's like, he knows what he's doing, so yeah. So we got our check-in response back. This was a pretty chill week check-ins wise. Like, we didn't change anything because really it's only been 1 week on everything, all of the new pieces of the protocol. So we're just keeping everything the same and gonna just keep on riding the wave. I did drop a total of, like, my average weight, I don't know, but it's around 168, and my average last week was like 171 to 172. So did have some drops. I feel overall less thick and less full all the time, like both muscular fullness, but also full in terms of like my digestion. Towards the end of this last growth phase and the off season in general, I was just feeling full all the time. So it's been nice to not feel quite as full. As long as I get my meal timing in correctly, like is sometimes hard for me to do. Like today or yesterday, I didn't eat my first meal until like 1 p.m. Would not recommend. It just means that my body doesn't have time to really digest everything as quickly as it does, or it doesn't have time to digest it before the next meal. So right now I'm trying to space things out, but it is a rest day, so I feel like it's a good chance for kind of a reset for my digestion. I'm definitely able to hold a vacuum more, and I see just like a little bit more like just tightness in my core. Like I can flex my abs and actually like see most of them kind of. So yeah, that's been fun. Training has still been great. Everything's been great. I'm still eating a lot of food, so it's not really a big reason to change anything. Gonna go over a couple more questions. Types of cardio you do, intensity level. So I already kind of touched on that, but my cardio is really just based on what feels good right now, and I'm working on the total calorie burn. So calorie burn means that I'm not tracking time as much as I am the intensity. So right now I'm burning 300 calories per session, or yeah, I have 3 times a week, 300 calories. So that means that whatever time it takes, I'm getting that calorie burn in. So it doesn't really matter the time it takes. If there's a day where I feel like not doing as high intensity work, I'll do that. And, you know, maybe it's just incline walking for an hour instead of spin bike intervals for 30 minutes. So that's kind of how I gauge the cardio intensity. Someone asked, do you have a timeline or are you staying super flexible? So that's a great question. I am staying relatively flexible. I'm not going to announce the show that I'm doing because it's not that I really care that much about what people think I'm doing or whatever, but I just like to keep it to myself for the most part. Some very close people to me know the show I'm shooting for, and I'm sure if someone really looked at me and looked at the pro schedule for figure, they could figure it out, like what shows I'm shooting for. But at this point, I am just shooting for the look. You know, no judge cares what show you thought of doing 20 to 25 weeks before you show up on stage. The judges care if you look correct. They care about your conditioning and your size and your posing and your peaked and like just how you look on stage compared to other people. So that's why I really don't care that much about my timeline right now. Obviously, it would be nice to be able to do the show that I have planned. But if not, then we will push it out to the next show that I'm able to do and go from there. So that's how I like to prep. That's also how I like to prep my clients, because there's nothing worse than getting to the show and not being ready. I've been there myself, and I really try to avoid getting my clients to that point where they're not ready and they were so dead set on a show, but they don't look correct. So okay, so one question is there anything you're changing from your last prep to this prep? So this is a big question because there's a lot that I'm changing. The biggest thing, the hair, my food, but it's mine, so it's okay. Biggest thing that has changed is the coach. I have a totally different coach than my last prep. And I've talked about this before, not only on the podcast, but just in my own social media and everything. So it's not really a secret. I was not with the right coach for my last prep. And he's a great person. I respect him, Paul, like he's awesome. But he is a bikini pro coach and he knows that. He and I have talked about that. So it just was time to move on to a coach who is more just well-rounded with the types of athletes they work with. Because if you're really, really good at one thing, it's hard sometimes to be also good at the other thing. And I think there was a certain amount of like holding on to me as a client and me holding on to him as a coach because we had been together for so long. I had been with him since 2016. He turned me pro in figure. So I think for a little bit it felt like I needed to stay with him because he had seen me for so long and known me for so long. But at the end of the day, like it came to that last pro season and we both recognized that, you know, we weren't aligning anymore. So I needed a coach who understands figure at the pro level, but also who understands how to work with athletes who are enhanced. And that was a big reason why I wanted to hire Mark, because I had been natural, 100% natural up until the time that me and Mark started, and we started the enhanced route of things for me. And so I really wanted a coach who was not only going to know what he was doing with drugs, but also take really a lot of care and concern for my health, my femininity, and the timeline that I wanted to be on in terms of like, I don't want to prep again until I'm fully ready. And I want to learn more as an athlete, but also as a coach. So I'd say that's the biggest difference in terms of this prep versus last prep, is just I have a new coach, new way of doing things. I'm training differently, mostly just in terms of like the type of split I'm on and how hard I'm training and things like that. I've always continued to have and find new levels of intensity and difficulties. So obviously I'm training harder than I was a few years ago, and a few years ago I was training harder than I was a few years before that. So the coach is the biggest difference. Obviously this being an enhanced prep, that's a big difference. And I think another big difference is just my mind and where that's at. My mental health and my life stability is in the best place that it's ever been, I think. I am in a good living situation. I have an amazing partner. I have great friends, great support system for myself. My clients are all so much more, I think, aligned with me than they ever have been before. And I think a big part of that is just me growing and learning as a coach, because my last prep was my first year as a full-time coach. So I was doing a lot of learning, and I think I kind of didn't really think about that when I was going into that prep, knowing that this is also my first year as a full-time coach, and I had quit my corporate job a few months into that prep so I could focus more on coaching and more on prep. And it was all a lot of great learning experiences, but I probably should have just stuck to like all the life changes that were going on at the time instead of adding a prep on top of that. So I'm really happy now that I'm in a really stable place with my job, my finances, my trajectory as a coach. I have a lot of systems in place now that I didn't have back then, a much better support system, and I'm in Texas. I'm not moving anytime soon. Like, there's just so many great things in my life right now that are gonna make this prep a lot better. Another question that I got is mental tips to switch from off season to prep. So I'm a believer that like your mindset should really be pretty much in the same place during that switch and during off season versus prep. Obviously things get harder at different times for different reasons in both seasons, but a lot of people think that like, you know, prep is so much harder than off season, and really it's all hard, but it's all something we can manage, and it's all something that we have the ability to make easier by just getting better at it. And so off season has been hard with like pushing as much food as I have been, and being really adamant that I don't miss meals and that I train as hard as I am and continue pushing for new levels and pushing limits and everything. Like, that's hard. It's something I love doing, but it's still difficult. It's still painful in different ways. And so I think the switch is really less of a switch. It's more of like a dial, and it's about just doing what's necessary. So like the only thing that switched was like, all right, I'm eating less. Now I'm less focused about, you know, staying full and feeling big and focusing on growth. And now I'm focused on getting leaner and looking closer each week to my stage package and what that should look like. You know, there's going to be a little bit more emphasis on, obviously, there's more emphasis on cardio, on being really strict and like specific with my food, not being like, you know, licking the knife of the peanut butter. It's like everything is tracked to the gram now. Whereas in off season, I can be a little looser because there's not that like pressure of the stage coming up. But mental shifts, honestly, it's just about like taking it one day at a time and taking it 1 week at a time and trusting my coach. That's one thing that's like, I've never prepped with this coach before, so I know there'll be some differences in that, like I'm putting all of my trust in him. I know he does not put athletes on stage not ready, regardless of the division, and I know he studies each division really, really closely, and he takes a lot of pride in his just action-oriented mind. He takes a lot of pride in who he puts on stage and how they show up, and not just down to like the conditioning, but the posing, the suit, like everything. He puts a lot of emphasis into that. And so I'm excited for just being able to have Mark in my corner, because I think my last prep, I kind of struggled a little bit with not having that as much, because I had been so kind of like hands off with Paul, or Paul had been more hands off with me because he trusted me to do what I needed to do and make a lot of my own decisions, which is not bad, but like I was doing my own training. We obviously didn't have drugs in the mix. Now I'm excited to really have Mark as a really great sounding board and really ask him questions when I need to and trust him fully, because I know he has my best interest. So those are some shifts I think I'm making, is just realizing like this is my first prep with him and he's gonna take care of me, and I'm in good hands. So I used to really not be super great at my vitamin intake, but since working with Mark, he basically makes it required that you take everything that he has you take, and he says he'll fire you if you don't take them. So I'm taking my vitamins right now. I have this great organizer from Core. So I basically put all of my vitamins for the day in like half of these, or for the most part, put like all of them in for like these 2 boxes, and then I have some other supplements that they don't fit into. That's just how I do it. But I am pretty good now at taking them every day. So far of prep, I've taken them every day, so I'm doing okay. What's up? Okay, so just got my hair done, and I brought my camera with me to my friend Sam's house. She does my hair. She's in Dallas, and I love her. And I brought my camera with me because I was gonna turn it on while she does my hair, so I can like, you know, do the vlog thing and like put in every single part of my life into this vlog. But then I got there and I just, you know, kind of disconnected a little bit, and we just talked and it was a good time. So I didn't get my camera out, but she did a blowout, and so I feel really... To answer the next question, the next question was, what is the change you are most excited to see, physical or who you are now during this prep? So I think that's a really good question. It came from one of my clients actually. And so physical, I'll answer that first. I am most excited to see the change in my quads. For anyone who's followed me for a long time, anyone who can look me up on NBC News Online knows that quads have been my weakest point. I've been really self-conscious about them pretty much ever since I became a pro, because as soon as I got my pro card, like I was pretty balanced top to bottom when I got my pro card, and then I actually injured my hips both hip flexors in like the month or two after I got my pro card in 2017, and I basically spent all of 2018 trying to rehab that and figure out how I can continue to build with this injury. And hindsight is 2020. I definitely should have taken 2019 off and not done my pro debut at the time that I did in 2019. But because I spent so much of 2018 really just rehabbing, not growing. So that was a mistake on my end, but you live and learn. And so I'm really excited because I've done a lot of work on bringing up my quads and my legs in general. My leg density is so much different. Like, being able to see the conditioning and like the lines in my quads now at 170 pounds, where it was barely visible when I was just stressed and inflamed and small in prep, honestly. Obviously I was a lot leaner in prep than I am now, but it's just going to be a night and day difference. So that physically, I'm most excited to see my quad definition, my quad density and size overall. And then it's just like also the overall conditioning. You know, I got so lean in 2017 for getting my pro card, and I've never been that lean since, and that's a problem. Like, I need to have conditioning as a pro. I mean, as anyone should, but like the pro level is no joke when it comes to conditioning. So I really need to see that on me to feel like I'm really like there and like belong, you know? So that's what I'm most excited about, is just like the quads, the leg density, and having the whole package, like the density and hardness, but also the conditioning. Because I knew back then I had the conditioning, just not the size. And then even in 2021, like I had a lot more size than I had before, but I still couldn't get that conditioning. So now I have everything. And am I gonna be the biggest on stage? Probably not, but I know I'm gonna be worlds ahead of where I was, and it'll be a damn good side-by-side for like looking over the last prep or the last two preps and just seeing how far I've come in the last few years. Now, in terms of who I am as a person now, and like what I'm most excited to see in terms of like differences this prep to last prep, is just how much more confident I am in myself and in my coach and in the process that I have in place and in the plan that he has for me. I don't have any doubts about his abilities to do what we need to do, and my abilities as well. I think going into my last couple preps, I had a lot of doubts, not only in my coach, but in me. Like, having self-doubt as you go into a prep or go into a show is like debilitating, and it makes it so hard to really get done what you need to get done with quality and conviction. You can do the cardio, you can eat the food, but if your heart isn't in it, then it's just not gonna work as well. There's just no other way around saying that. Like, it doesn't work as well. Nothing works as well when you're not passionate about it. And so I was passionate about what I was doing, but I knew there was something missing, and I knew that something was off back then. And it was just something I just kept trying to like put away. And now I'm not putting things away. I'm talking about them. I'll write about them. I'll talk about them here, talk about them with people close to me. I'm not afraid to, you know, question when things need to be questioned, and learn more too. I think I was so tied to how I did things in the past and how my coach did things that I wasn't as confident in like asking more questions or wondering like, should I really be doing this right now at all? Or should I be doing this differently? And yeah, towards the end of my last prep, I definitely recognized that that was a flaw in my process, that I did not have the energy or mental capacity at the time to really see. And so now, since I've been off for this long, for like 2.5 years, I really have a lot better of a mindset going into this prep. So I'm happy. I'm excited. It is going to be a good time, win or lose. And yeah, this is week 1. And there's going to be a lot of other things that happen throughout this prep, and it's going to get hard, but I'm excited for it. And I know the way it's going to get hard is the right way. and it's going to be a new experience, and I'm going to learn a lot from it as a person, as a coach, as an athlete, all the things. So, see, other questions that I got asked, how is figure prep different than bikini? So really, there's not a lot of difference in terms of prep, because like if you're prepping, you're prepping. The goal is to get leaner and fit the criteria of your division. So if you're a bikini competitor, you are going to have the musculature and the shape and size overall that a bikini competitor should have. So look at Miss Bikini Olympia, Miss Bikini International, like Arnold and Olympia winners. That is the criteria. Obviously, if you're an amateur, there's a lot more of a range that's going to be on stage that you're going to be compared to, whereas at the pro level, you're going to be compared to the best, who are all much closer to that criteria in terms of size, conditioning, overall look, everything. And then same thing goes for figure. Like, we're all trying to look like Sid Gillen, and there's no figure international anymore. But if there was, that's what we would try to do. So it's really just about like getting lean enough, holding on to the muscle you have, and then when it comes time to like truly step on stage, it's like, it's the presentation, like your posing and your overall look, your hardness, graininess. They don't want a lot of hardness in bikini. They want it a little softer and more feminine. Whereas figure, you're just a harder, more balanced top to bottom look than it is in bikini. So they're obviously very different. And that's really the only difference. Like, the prep is going to be different from person to person. So my prep as a figure pro is going to be different than another figure pro's prep, just because we are different people, we're different bodies, we have different coaches. In bodybuilding, I think it's really important for people, especially if they're newer, to understand that there's a lot of different pathways to get from point A to point B. You know, one person who's a new aspiring competitor of whatever division, they could go with any of 5 different coaches, right? And though each of those coaches might have a very different plan or way to get to that person's goal. It doesn't necessarily mean that one is wrong or one is more right. What's going to be the best is going to be what works best for the client and for like the competitor. The vibe and communication has to be on point. The timeline has to be realistic to both parties. There has to be clear communication between the two, and that I think is the more important thing. Not so much like the exact type of protocol, like meal plan versus macros, or, you know, these drugs versus those drugs, or, you know, this type of cardio versus that type of cardio. Like, everything works. And I think people forget that everything works, but some things work better for some people, and we don't really know that until we try it, or until we try something, it doesn't work, and then we try something else. So that's it. I feel like the best way I can answer that question, because the goal is just to fit the criteria. So I will say, in terms of amateur versus pro, the goal for a pro is going to be qualifying for the Olympia for the most part. Some pros just compete because they love to compete, and there's nothing wrong with that too. Or they just compete to win money. That's another thing. Like, as a top 5 competitor, you're competing for money, and in some divisions you're making more than others, but that's a reason some people compete. That, and because it keeps them relevant in their industry of coaching, or, you know, keeps them their sponsorships. Like, people compete for a lot of different reasons, not just trying to make it to the O, but that's the overall goal. That's what the division, how it's really organized. In terms of, like, if you do well at a show, you get feedback, and then maybe you win the next show, and you then get your ticket to the Olympia. So people competing as pros, their timeline is more based on like when they are going to be the most ready and the most competitive. Whereas amateurs, like, that should also be their goal, but, you know, it's not as much of a high stakes situation, because like, you're prepping to do an amateur show, like a national qualifier. And then if you are ready for a national show, then you're prepping for one of those, and you have to be like pretty stuck to the timeline of the national show you're doing, because there's only a few a year. For pros, there's more shows per year that we're working towards. Obviously, there is a timeline of the Olympia, but it's just a little different in how you would go about picking shows. Like, I'm picking shows based on like the time I have to prep, what my coach says is realistic for prepping me, and the shows that I would want to do that I'm close enough to, that kind of thing. But as a pro, you kind of have to accept the fact that there's shows, there might not be a pro show in your area, so you're probably going to have to travel. So there's one more question that I got. It was on my anonymous questions, and it was, what is the advice you most needed to hear for this prep? And honestly, I don't, that was kind of hard to think about. I had to pause and decide like what is the best advice or the advice I needed the most. I think what I needed most was for the people that I care about their opinion the most, which is really just my coach. But Austin too is a big part of that. The advice or the thing that I needed to hear the most was that I am ready and that they are confident in me. And so when I first heard from Mark that he thought that I was ready for a prep this year, it was several months ago before I had even started my last growth phase. And he said, I think we're going to be in a great place to start prep after this growth phase, because he had seen me go through all my other growth phases before in the last few years. So hearing that was what I think I really needed, because I know I told him when I hired him, I am hiring you not just because I need to win or anything like that. I need to feel like I belong up there. And I really have never felt like that as a pro. And so this is, now that I've done so many pro shows and come up short pretty much on what I needed to present, I need to never do that again. I don't want to be embarrassed like that again. And I told him that. I said, like, that's your job. I need you to make sure that I don't do that. So push me however you need to push me, but I'm not doing that again. And so hearing that he knew I was ready to do this was really powerful to me and really exciting, kind of scary. But it's what I needed. And it gave me the confidence to just say like, all right, let's fucking go. So, and then when I asked Austin, it was more of just like, you know, asking this person that's very close to me, who trains with me, who sees me every day, and who has a really good handle on bodybuilding and just the industry as a whole and what is being seen on stage. And I asked him, you know, what do you think about if I'm ready to prep? And he said, I think that you're just going to get so much out of this that you don't even realize, you know, whether, you know, you're not going to be the biggest, and that's not necessarily what you want, is to be the biggest person on stage. And I agree to some extent. Obviously, like, there's some level of size that I don't really want for myself and my body. And there's also a level of, you know, femininity that I want to keep. And those two things go hand in hand for females. But the next part of what he said is like, I think that you got to prep and you got to see what you can do. And you have to see how well it can work in your favor in other ways other than just placing. And that was a really good perspective that I think about a lot, in just like how much this can help me, not just like as a coach in a way. Like, obviously whenever someone preps and they're a coach and they show off their body more in prep, they get more engagement. That's just how social media works. But I'm less concerned about that and more seeing the benefit and the impact my prep can have on my clients and their trust in me and their confidence in me, knowing that I walk the walk and I'm doing everything that I would make them do or ask them to do. And I can do hard fucking things. They know that about me already, but actually being able to see it and also see like this kind of thing is, I think, a really big part of it. And I needed to hear that as well, because there was before he said that, I had not thought about doing this YouTube channel. Not at all. I had thought about doing my podcast, so I was already doing that at the time. But I did not plan on documenting this prep. And that piece of advice was what sparked my interest in doing this and buying this camera and doing all this stuff, editing and everything, and doing this for you guys. So thanks for watching. I'm so excited. Or if anything of note comes up for me to document and post next week, I will. If not, you'll catch it on the next one, whenever that is. So